Good morning. This is Tom Blubaugh with the Authors Community here with Kerry, Kerr, McAvoy. And Kerry, how are you this morning?
I'm doing great, Tom. Thank you.
All right. Well, we've been talking about various things about the publishing industry and what we wish we knew before we knew them. And, we just have to understand as authors that there's, how do I say it? We don't know what we don't know.
Exactly.
And the internet is changing so rapidly that something that we really need to know may come out this afternoon at 4 o'clock, but we may not know it for a month. And but there's nothing we can do about that. We just have to go along. So let me ask you another question. Do you see yourself as an author or a writer?
That's been a really hard shift. I have a PhD in psychology, so in order to be able to call myself a psychologist, it took me 9.5 years of education, along with supervised clinical training, a completion of a dissertation. So there was all these hoops that I had to go through. So by the time that I was done and they awarded me the PhD, I really owned that title of psychologist. I felt like I sort of paid my dues. To become an author nowadays, especially if you don't go through the traditional publishing route, is a really different process. And for me, it's been really sticky, and I'd be curious to hear what yours has been like. But for me, I initially just said I was a writer. I didn't really see myself as an author. Even though I had something on the market for sale, I still, when someone said, oh, she's an author, I wanted to correct them and say, no, because I kind of considered if I didn't have the label Zondervan underneath my name, that maybe I wasn't really truly legitimate. So, Tom, what took for you to begin to identify yourself as an author?
Took a long time, Kerry. I published my first book in 1973. I was holding seminars in churches on establishing a bus ministry. And it wasn't like today. We didn't have PowerPoint and all that kind of stuff. I had a whiteboard or a blackboard, and people would take notes. But the thing that frustrated me is that they would write down everything I said.
Mm-hmm.
What I really wanted them to do was write down what I caused them to think, because that was going to really be what they needed. So I decided to write a book, and I was in Bible college, and I wrote this book. It was 2 term papers, one on Christian education and one on evangelism. And drugs have been around, drugs have been around since, 1920s. And we know that alcohol is actually a drug.
Mm-hmm.
But the prominence of drugs and stuff was just really coming to light. And so that's what my concern was. So I devoted a lot of my little book to that. I printed, I think 150 copies. I sold them for $1.60 a piece, and I sold them all out. But I didn't consider myself an author. I considered myself a public speaker who was just trying to get the information out. In fact, I didn't even keep a copy of the book.
Wow.
What's funny is that when my novel came out in 2011, my publisher saw that book, Behind the Scenes of the Bus Ministry, on Amazon, told me about it. So the book that I sold for $1.60, I bought for $10, and it was autographed by me.
Wow.
So anyway, I went from there to writing magazine articles for denominational magazines, business magazines, mainly insurance and that kind of thing. Still, I was just a writer.
Mm-hmm.
In 2009, somebody told me that Barber Publishing was looking for authors for devotional items. And I contacted them, and they were coming out with a book called The Great Outdoors. And as it turned out, there were 14 of us who wrote the devotionals for that book. I was under contract, and I was paid by the piece.
Okay.
But Kerry, when I got that book, I have it over here in my bookcase, but was thinking about this, I would have gotten it out. But when I sat down, I was by myself. Barbara was at work. It was such a beautiful book.
Mm-hmm.
And when I saw how it was put together, I cried like a baby.
Oh.
And it was at that point that I thought, wow, maybe I really am an author.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when my writing really took a different turn.
Yeah, I think for me it was the first manuscript I wrote, I split into 2 separate books. So I immediately had 2 books that were on the market. But it was when I wrote the 3rd book and was very intentional about it that I started to see myself as having more than one idea, that wasn't just approaching this like a hobby, that this was really becoming a profession for me. And that for me was a powerful change, to begin to see myself as having a legacy of something. But it took courage. I have to say that to claim the title is hard these days because it isn't necessarily a traditional route. And part of what comes with it, which it makes me a little uncomfortable, is that the society sees me as an expert. Even if maybe I don't see myself as an expert, just by the nature of putting something into words makes you suddenly have authority and credibility. And so you get branded as an author by those around you, even though before you're ready maybe to see yourself as an author. So I think it's really good to think about this so that you can step into that in a way that's helpful. I know one thing that really changed for me is that I started to realize anything I posted anywhere I needed to see as a finished piece of work, not just to be casual about what I said.
Exactly. You bring up a point. Being an author is actually running a business.
Yes.
If you sell one book, you're in business.
That's right.
And if it's a retail sale, you really need to collect the sales tax, which means you need to have a sales tax number with the state. You need to have your licenses with the city and the county if they're required. You're a legitimate business.
Yeah.
And you need to treat it as such. I'm not going to say most because I've not really calculated the stats, but I'm just going to say a lot of people that I work with who consider themselves an author, really it is a hobby because they are not doing anything about the business part of it. They don't understand the social media and those things. And I'm hoping that that's something in the community that we're going to change, because it is a business. You are a business person. You are a professional. Lots of people talk about writing a book, but really percentage-wise, very few people actually complete the process.
Right. Yeah, it's a daunting process and takes a lot of discipline, and we should see that as a mark of our professionalism that we're able to do that. So
letting go of making money as an evidence of being an expert.
Yes. I think that's critical. I think that it's very easy to think that in order to be legitimate, you need to be earning a certain kind of income or have a contract with a publisher. But it's not that. It's really you seeing yourself as approaching this as a business, as a professional, and claiming the title yourself, and then intentionally branding your work, seeing everything that you put out as work product. Even if it's a posting on Facebook that's even about yourself, it's still work product. So I think it's a big shift away from necessarily defining us as financially, but more defining it as work or as outcome of what you put out, which may or may not earn money, but it's still all about branding yourself and your business.
There's a lot of things that you have to do in business that doesn't turn a dollar.
Right.
If you look at Walmart or any other big store, Macy's, anybody like that, it takes a lot of effort and a lot of money just to get that store built and the products in there and the people hired and everything before you ever turn a penny of profit. And
exactly.
Uh, if,
And each book that you write is a stepping stone to a bigger platform for the next book. It's a building momentum.
exactly. And one thing that we haven't mentioned here, I'm going to bring it in real quick, and then we'll end this session because I'm really anxious to get into the platform building and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is that if I get my thought straight in here, a book is not always something that is going to be a bestseller. A lot of times a book is a large business card.
Yes.
That opens up doors to speaking and all kinds of things, that maybe an author doesn't even think about. I'm writing this book. I want people to read this book, but they don't think about, well, maybe I need to speak to a certain group of people about the topic of this book. Maybe I can help people better that way. Maybe I can influence young people to be writers. Maybe I need to be in schools and things like that. And so when you go and talk to these people and you give them the book as a business card, wow, that's not something that they're going to throw away.
No. I think that's exactly right. I think you need to view your beginning work, especially as like you said, a business card or a calling card that legitimizes yourself as somebody has something to say.
Right. Kerry, thank you very much. I look forward to our next session.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. I do too.
All righty. Bye-bye.